"The game's gone" is a common saying among football fans these days, and represents a general displeasure with the way football has evolved in recent decades. One of these evolutions comes in the form of the football hardman, aka the enforcer, whose responsibilities include both unsettling the opposition and protecting their teammates. And while these responsibilities haven't changed, the way in which they are achieved definitely has. It can be broken down into 3 stages. The old school hardmen were impossible to miss. They were in your face and weren't afraid to throw their weight around. Not to mention, every tackle was a studs up 2-footer. Nobody wanted to win the ball more and keep it less, and every single team had at least a couple. You can get a sense of their skill sets by looking at their nicknames. In the 60s and 70s, you had Chelsea's Ron Chopper Harris, Leeds United's Norman Bites Your Legs Hunter, and Liverpool's Tommy the Anfield Iron Smith. Bill Shankly once said, "Tommy Smith wasn't born, he was quarried." Compared to today, the actual game was unrecognisable. It was Route 1 football, and all those long balls played over the top led to lots of high-speed collisions. And if you were a centre-back, your job was to clatter the striker as soon as you could. But the hardman was not defined by his position on the pitch. Lining up your local tough guy at centre-back or central midfielder would likely put him within an elbow's reach of the opposite team's star players. But goalkeepers, wingers and strikers could all inhabit the role of the hardman. In other words, it's less of a position and more of a state of mind. There was a limit to all the recklessness, however, even for the nastiest hardmen. Spitting or actually throwing a punch all but ensured an early trip to the locker room. Besides, the very best bruisers needed only their reputation to unsettle the opposition. Billy Whitehurst, who played for 20 teams over a 15-year career and is up near the top of every toughest player list, allegedly used to make extra money during his time with Oxford United by bare-knuckle boxing with gypsies. Many could dish it out as well as take it. Norman Bites Your Legs Hunter once broke his leg during a game, but was so used to doing it to others that when the trainer told him the leg was broken, he asked, "Whose is it?" In the late 1980s, things began to change. The style and technique of the top English clubs benefited from the introduction of foreign players and coaches, who introduced possession football. The evolution from booting the ball downfield to pass and move had begun. But that didn't stop the next wave of 2-footed enthusiasts, most infamously, Wimbledon's Crazy Gang, a group of reckless defenders and midfielders, led by Vinnie the Axe Jones. The Crazy Gang glorified the hardman persona almost too much, to the point where it became overkill, and the days of the old school hardman were soon over. The transition came with a French coach, his French midfielder, and an Irishman who hated them both. When Arsene Wenger took over at Arsenal in 1996, he spoke about his desire for Arsenal to play what he called modern football. Wenger's Arsenal would emphasise speed, possession and movement, talents that didn't necessarily come naturally to your average bruiser. But he didn't get rid of the hardman. Instead, he tweaked it to suit his style. He did this by bringing along fellow Frenchman Patrick Vieira. Vieira combined aggressive tackling and aerial dominance with a soft touch and good vision. It was a rare combination, and Vieira's only equal became his great nemesis. Roy Keane managed Manchester United's dirty work, protected his teammates, tackled hard from box to box, and even scored crucial goals. Vieira and Keane represented the hardman 2.0, aka the General, players who had all the tools of the bruiser, but with the added touch, vision, and the ability to finish. They showed that you could refine the hardman without removing all the sharp edges, and watching the two face off was box office stuff. With so many international players coming over, the game had to change. The skill level at every position was higher, and the chances of making a roster spot lower. Wenger's style of play influenced his competitors. Traditional fullbacks were replaced by speedy wingers who could cross the ball. Teams that traditionally played in the most straightforward style were completely reborn. Who would ever imagine that Stoke City, the club synonymous with old school, no-nonsense football, having the likes of Bojan and Xherdan Shaqiri on their roster? The final nail in the hardman's coffin came from the league itself. The people in charge recognised that the huge investments made in players would be at risk if those players were injured by a flying jump kick, so they began to penalise the worst offenders more harshly. So who represents the newest model? Like I mentioned in the beginning, the enforcer is there to unsettle the opposition and protect his teammates. You might not like it, but the type of player that comes to mind in the modern day is a player like Rodrigo de Paul, Diego Costa, or Jamie Vardy. It's a far cry from the likes of Keane and Vieira, but hear me out. They press hard, are tough tacklers, and don't let their teammates get pushed around. The key difference is that, instead of being an overbearing physical presence, They now occupy the role of a mental manipulator, or in simple terms, a wind-up merchant. They have that same desire to get an edge on their opponents, but are required to operate within the new laws of the game. They recognise what tricks they can use to help their team, and are crafty enough to do exactly that. The game revolves around winning, and so have the three evolutions of the Enforcer. Each was exactly what their team needed to win at the time. The old school hardman simply has no place anymore. Much like the gladiators of ancient Rome, they were entertaining, but they should be left in the past.